Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of ACA Cast with your host this week. My name is Alex Szeto. ACA Cast is the official podcast of ACA International, the leading voice of the accounts receivable management industry. Before we start today's episode, content is presented for general references only. So 2020 is an election year, and we want to delve into some of the hot-button state issues that's going to come up. Joining with me today is Andy Madden. He is ACA International's Vice President of State and Government Affairs. How's it going today, Andy?
Hey, great, Alex. Hey, Happy New Year, and thank you for having me today.
Indeed. Happy New Year to all our listeners. So we're going to talk about state-level politics today. Do you have any predictions for the upcoming 2020 legislative sessions?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we kind of look backwards at the 2019 legislative session, it was a very, very busy session. As a matter of fact, I would say it was probably the busiest legislative session as far as number of bills, just pure volume of bills that would have impacted the industry that were introduced. We were looking at a little over 750 bills across the states. Now, in 2019, all 50 states convened sessions. So one good thing we have going into 2020, only 46 states are convening sessions. So Montana, Nevada, North Dakota, and Texas, while they can still have committee hearings, they do not have formal sessions unless called back in by the governor. If you're looking at the volume, I expect it to be similar in 2020. 25 states carry over legislation. So even though we were able to, at least on bills where we were playing defense, kind of get them tabled for the year, they get new life come 2020. So 25 states, we're right back where we started in a lot of positions. And when we're playing offense, that's a great thing. Bills that we were not able to get through in those 25 states, they come back. You kind of see the level of pre-filing going on right now and sort of legislative meetings and sessions and, kind of off-session hearings that are taking place. I think it's going to be a very busy year. We will have 14 states that have their filing deadlines passed by January 15th. So by mid-January, we should have a very good sense of at least the level of legislation we're looking at and the type of bills that we're looking at for this year.
So what you're saying is the volume is probably going to remain the same or similar to 2019 levels. So what are the legislative trends or issues that you saw last year that will carry over in the 2020 sessions across the state?
The one good thing is in the second year of a session, usually what you're seeing is sort of a rehash of bills that have already been introduced. So a lot of times you do not have brand new issues or new things that have been dreamt up that we either have to combat. And a lot of times it goes the same with us when we're on offense. It's just in the second session, things go a little bit faster. So if we did not have it introduced or at least teed up last year, chances are hard for us to get it teed up for this year. As you know, most of the time we are playing defense. So I would expect sort of bills that we looked at in 2019 that kind of come back, or at least those issue areas, efforts to shorten the statute of limitations, efforts to limit post-judgment interest, efforts to limit garnishment, to increase exemptions from garnishment. I expect you'll see sort of those three issues coming back in a lot of states. The efforts to fight statute limitations, that was a big one in California, Ohio, Massachusetts, Illinois last year. When you look at the limiting post-judgment interest, that came up in several states. Washington and Illinois actually enacted legislation to shorten or to limit post-judgment interest. And efforts to limit garnishment, again, sort of the same states, California, Colorado, Washington, Wyoming, they all dealt with major pushes in 2019. So I think that's one that we will see come up again this year. But we have a great story to tell on that, and I think that when we're able to get in front of legislators and, educate them on what the true impact is when you limit the statute of limitations or you shorten it, how it really impacts the consumer and, it is the end user, the debtor, who actually is most of the time is the one who is harmed the most by these efforts. They seem to get it. So our biggest effort we have is just getting in front of legislators and educating them about the impact of these bills that they have proposed. On a good note, I do think we will see more of our offensive efforts. There have been some major pushes in the last couple of years. It was really led by the state of New York and then our Indiana unit, as well as our California unit, to combat mass dispute letters from credit repair companies and mass letter mills that are out there. I do think we will see efforts from the industry to limit those. This is something that I know is on a lot of the attorneys general's radar. It is on the CFPB's radar at the federal level, and we've had legislation in both California and Indiana. I think other states right now are at least considering introducing these bills, and at a certain point you just need kind of one of them to get through, and a lot of times then other states will follow suit. So I think we'll see a lot of continuing efforts on that front as well.
Are there any other issues on the legislative front?
I tend to think that we will see a lot of issues popping up around medical debt and balance billing. That was sort of the hot topic issue this year. You're going to see that at the federal level, and that is also going to trickle down to the state level. And then again, we saw a lot of issues last year, a lot of bills introduced on privacy and data security. We will see a lot of those pop back up. Everyone's sort of taking a step back and waiting to see what California does. The California law went into effect on January 1, so people want to sort of see where that goes. There are already new efforts in California. The gentleman who ran the effort on the original California Consumer Privacy Protection Act, he has already introduced a new initiative, Alistair McTaggart. So we'll see where that goes. And there's already thought that the Attorney General, who had a rule writing back in October through December, there's talk of him actually putting out a new rule writing as well. So we'll see how that impacts it and how that impacts what other states do in that front as well.
Do you foresee other states emulating the California legislation on data security then?
The short answer is yes. I think the real question is going to be how quickly do they do it. There are a lot of legislators who want to introduce something so they can kind of hang their hat on it, but there is a bit of concern out there of let's see how this truly works when it's being implemented. So where this last year, I think a lot of people were trying to put out markers to get something down. My hope is this year there will be a slightly more guarded and measured approach to these types of bills to see, what will the true impact be. That being said, Alex, it is an election year, so there is going to be a strong push to get things done quickly, and sometimes politics trumps policy, and this is certainly one of those issues where I think you can have politics trumping policy.
Right, and you mentioned 2020 is an election year. So do you see any other factors impacting the industry's advocacy efforts for this year?
I do. I think when you look at just the election, obviously at the federal level, it is going to be the topic du jour, I think, every day in every newspaper and leading off the nightly news from now until November. So yes, it will have a big impact on what's going on at the state level. A lot of times you see issues that take place at the state level, they kind of trickle up to the federal level. I think right now with this highly anticipated federal election, I think you're going to see a lot of things from the campaign trail, both on the congressional side of things as well as the presidential side of things, trickle down. And I think you'll see that on issues like student loans. I think you're going to see a lot of that on medical debt. Again, you may see it on things like data security and privacy. You're probably also going to see it as legislators try to make a separation between themselves and the Trump administration, that they will try to attack perceived lack of action by the Trump administration. You'll see a lot of attorneys general trying to, make a name for themselves and kind of calling out issues and really trying to pivot on what the Trump administration may or may not be doing and using that as a point to get political points in an election year.
Earlier, you were talking about how our state units are going offensive and defensive regarding these legislations. So to our listeners, how could they get involved with ACA and advocacy work? What advice do you have for them to get started?
That's a great question. The biggest thing is just find a way to get involved. And the easiest thing is to contact your state unit. If you just reach out to your state unit, either your unit president or, hey, reach out directly to me and I will get you in touch with them. All of our state units have some legislative team in place. We have over 30 contract lobbyists that work for our state and regional units who are helping keep their ear to the ground and they're advocating for the industry on a daily basis. Majority of our units hold some form of Capitol Day or Legislative Day where they will bring folks to the Capitol, and with the help of their lobbyists and their legislative teams, they will set up as many meetings as possible and in one day just go around and meet with all of the appropriate committee chairs, the appropriate committee members, meet with their direct state legislator, and they can help set up these meetings. I can help set up these meetings, but that's the easiest way to do it. Just get involved with them. Look out for grassroots opportunities. We constantly have, when bills are going through, with conversations with our lobbyists as well as any allies we have in the legislature, find out what is the best way to try to combat this legislation or to promote the legislation, and we'll do it through grassroots efforts. A lot of times we do this through email campaigns, letter campaigns, phone call campaigns.
Do you have any specific examples of a grassroots activity from last year?
Last year, through several of our campaigns, we had over 7,000 strategic touches of state legislators across the country.
That's a lot.
A couple. It was really tremendous, and we had two campaigns, one in Ohio on a specific bill, as well as one in New York on a specific bill. It had an absolute huge impact and able to, one was to amend the bill, and the other one was actually to stop the bill. And that is just such an easy way to get involved. And then the other one is, hey, all politics is local. As you mentioned, there's the state elections in conjunction with the federal elections this year. So there are literally thousands and thousands of state legislators on the ballot. They all need volunteers to help knock on doors, to pass out flyers. They all need money. Look for fundraising opportunities. And even if all you do is just go find them when they're at a local town hall or at a local fair, go up and introduce yourself, just so when you have a real issue that comes forth across your desk and their desk, it's not the first time they're meeting you. That is just the easiest way to get involved.
It looks like 2020 will be a busy year in politics. Any final thoughts, Andy, before we wrap up today's episode?
No, I just want to wish everybody a happy new year, and I want to thank everybody for the hard work they did on behalf of the industry in 2019. And I think we have really laid a good groundwork for the work that we will be doing in 2020. When I work on state legislation, it is an absolute team effort. So it's our 36 state and regional units and their legislative teams and their officers and their on-the-ground volunteers that get these issues done and help us out. Our President Roger Weiss, he has the saying this year, EMGAM, E-M-G-A-M, every member get a member. I would say every member get an advocate. So as you are advocating for the industry, find someone else, and whether it is a colleague who you work with, if it's someone, one of your vendors, one of your clients, or just a friend. Every time we can expand our voice, find another messenger, it helps us out. And as I always say, I think when you work in advocacy, it is contagious. Really, all you have to do is do it once or twice, and it's fun. And that's why people continue to do it, and you find these folks who are advocates, and they do it for years. So if you can grab one other advocate that can help out the industry, it will have a long-term impact.
Sound advice, Andy, and thank you again for joining with us today on ACA Cast.
Thank you.
Before we end today's episode, you can subscribe to ACA Cast on iTunes or wherever you download your podcasts so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we appreciate our ratings on iTunes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on ACA Cast.